Whenever you're ready, let us know.
Things fired up here.
Oh, yeah, I have several.
Danny?
Oh,
Claire
thanks a
Lang might want
lot.
to address the board to it. Wow.
Oh, okay. You want to do it at the,
Maybe right
before the ditch?
he's just. Isn't that terrible?
Mr. Chair, we are ready whenever you are.
Oh, okay. Yep,
That's it, you know what, that's.
I'll get to it.
sounds good. All right, if everybody please rise. The pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Election Day 2024 Meeker County. And those of you who live in divided homes, I call it the Fight Club. I'm not looking forward to going home. So,
It's gonna be a long meeting then, Dave?
yeah, I'm gonna extend it out, so sorry, everybody. I'm gonna drag everything out and delay it, exactly.
Is this any different than a normal?
No,
No, actually, it's no different any other day, so. I always have diarrhea of the mouth, so it really doesn't help me. So, I know there's a couple issues today, as far as there's a ditch, some comments for the ditch, and there's some comments for the planning and zoning. And what we're gonna do for those comments, we're gonna wait until those particular items come up during the board. So hold those public comments until we recognize you during your portion. So if it's planning and zoning, after Greg speaks, we'll do a little public comment, and the same with the ditch. So is there any other public comment today other than those two items?
So,
If-
Mr. Chair, I just want, people
Yeah.
called me about this, and I told them that there was gonna be no public comment about that, so you are.
Yep.
You have to change the rules, so.
Yep.
I don't wanna look like I didn't know what I was talking about.
I got the club,
He's got the club, so we're gonna do it different today.
just like you were one other time.
Or two, shush now.
All right, no need to dig
As
into
long
Come
that.
on now,
As
come on.
long as we're being transparent and just, full disclosure, I received a couple of calls, but I didn't have access to information, so I'm not gonna return a call when I don't have any way to respond to you, because I was in meetings and stuff.
We're all
yesterday,
covering
so.
ourselves
there
today.
you go.
Oh, no,
I understand.
Not in my district either, and I wanna kinda, that I'm
All right,
respecting the sitting commissioners that are.
all right. All right, thank you. All right, we'll move on to agenda. Looking for a motion.
No changes today, Mr. Chair.
Okay,
Mr. Chair, move to approve the agenda as printed.
motion made by Johnson,
Schmidt will second.
second by Schmidt. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signal by saying aye.
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 Motion carries. Consent agenda. Andrew.
Yes. We have approval of the October 15th board meeting minutes, approval of the Health and Human Services County and Hospital accounts payable, acceptance of a $1,000 donation from Meeker County Domestic Violence Program for Victim Services, approval of the 2023 Emergency Management Performance Grant, approval of the 2025-26 City of Dassel Law Enforcement Contract, and that is the consent agenda.
Thank you, Andrew. Do we have any questions on the consent agenda? Looking for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I will move the consent agenda as printed.
Motion made by Schmidt,
I'll second that.
second by Bredesen. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Paul Bukovich.
Your business I have before you is to come up with some gap funding for the Southwest 18 Mental Health Consortium. Mental health initiatives were initially designed based on regional treatment centers and the closing of the regional treatment centers to create a regional process in which counties can collectively develop and maintain and support adult mental health services throughout their region. The issue before us on the gap funding is the nature of how those funds are dispensed and from the Department of Human Services. They give a 2-year grant. At the end of the grant, they do not allow funds to be rolled over into the next year, causing a gap in the ability for the initiative to maintain the payments based on their contracts. And so with that, it's been an ongoing issue. And so with that, we are looking to shore that up by using a funding from each of the 18 member counties based on their population, the base funding and their population, to create a pool of restricted funds that will be held by the Southwest 18 for ensuring that they're able to meet their contractual needs at the end of their grant cycle. This year, we have seen a significant increase in the funds available to the Adult Mental Health Initiative starting in 2025. That will go into 25 and 26. I think there is some significant benefit to Meeker County to be able to continue to access these funds. One area in particular is our housing services. We do not have that capacity to do that locally, and so we tap into the largest of the region and the funds there. We also have flex funds that we receive from the region, and it also helps to support the operations of our mental health center, Woodland Centers. Previously, we had brought this before you, and we wanted the initiative to explore other options other than using this gap funding. They did explore all of those options at our request, but in kind of the nature of working with all the groups, those options were not feasible for us to ensure that we're meeting the contractual obligations of the initiative and to keep those funds going forward. So that's where I bring forward this request to you. We also have seen a significant change in the governance of the Adult Mental Health Initiative, and we're satisfied with where that is going as well.
Want a motion?
Sure, we'll do a motion.
All right. Mr. Chair, move to approve Meeker County's contribution to the Southwestern Minnesota Adult Mental Health Consortium Reserve Cash Account.
Okay, motion made by Paul,
I will second.
second by seasoned veteran Beth.
Mr. Chair, I will
Any
speak.
further discussion on
I'd
that?
like to speak on
Yep.
behalf of this motion. As well, you know, it was several months ago when this started, and we went to our first meeting. The joint powers agreement was paper thin, very weak. There was no governance of the money. People were voting on how the money was going to be distributed, that were actually going to be folks that would receive some of that money. So the new JPA and its bylaws, which the bylaws can be tweaked a little bit yet, but the new JPA was really the efforts of our county attorney, Andrew Lutson, Paul Bukovich, and myself as we move forward. We got on that joint powers agreement almost everything that we asked for. So I have spoken with Representative Gilman about this issue. They're well aware of the funding gap. They're well aware of how that works. But a fix to it is nowhere in the near future. So this contribution by this county will go into their reserve account. And when they run those shortfalls, they'll be able to write the checks and continue the payments until the next load of money comes from St. Paul.
All right. Thank you very much. Any other discussion? Now, you're on that governance board, or is it Paul, or is it both you?
The governance board changed. It used to be a mixture of folks. It will now strictly be the 18 counties commissioners or their alternate will be the governance.
So I was gonna be the commissioner and couldn't make it, so Paul picked up my slack and called me and said, why'd you stick me here? But anyway, he said, you're doing such a good job, you need to stay, and I thank you, he's done an excellent job. And I'll be the alternate. I went to the annual meeting with him, and I think you can see there's a lot of progress that's been made, so it's a good thing.
Yep. And I appreciate all you did too, because I know we rejected it the first time until there was proper governance, and then that's when you guys stepped in. So kudos to Meeker counties. So with that said, there's a motion on the table. Any other further discussion? All those in favor, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you,
Thanks, Paul.
Paul. Greg Schultz.
Morning.
Morning.
Both land use directors. Morning, I got a rezoning and preliminary plat applications for Lana and Joel West Experience Edition. Just east of Dassel. I'm gonna give you a little background on this, as you can see from the map. Street east of Dassel on the county line, which is just north contiguous of our zone property that has been rezoned. Part of it's been rezoned since 1993. This process started in June. The experiences came to our planning commission meeting, as with all rezones of plats, they come to a preliminary meeting ahead of time to get a feel of what the planning commission has for the project. In that June meeting, they came with 3 lots, larger than what they ended up by, and that was directed by the planning commission themselves. Planning commission gave them direction that time. They didn't like the size of the lots. They'd like to see them a little smaller, and possibly even more lots perhaps, but they came back and applied in August, they applied with a 3-lot plat that was more in line with what the planning commission had suggested them to do in June. With that, since that time, they had, at the June preliminary meeting, was some opposition there from the township. Township didn't like agricultural land being taken out of ag to be rezoned. There was some of that as well. But in the July meeting notes from the township, they did approve a changing of the access to the property, which was on the very east side of the property on the county line, to an area that would more line up with the 3 lots that the experiences were going to be platting. So with that, they applied in August. We got to the board in September with what you see on the board right there. That's the final plat. The board, there was a fair amount of opposition from the neighborhood at that meeting in September. The board decided to table it to kind of look at some issues like crop production, some tiling, things like that, to give them a chance, and also give them a chance, the board members that did not go out and look at the property, gave them a chance to go out and look at the property if they so choose to, or they'd make a decision. Coming back to, so they tabled it for a month until October. The October meeting came back. There's still quite a bit of discussion amongst the neighbors, the experiences, and the commissioners as well. The township did not show up at that October meeting, so they did not voice their opinion on that at that time. So what these are is 1 lot's 3 acres, 1 lot's 4 acres, 1 lot's 4.9 acres out of this. This is a 30.5 acre meets and bounds property. Of that, about 12 acres would be pulled out to be rezoned as R2. The rest would remain as agriculture. With the discussions from, as you can see from the RBA, and that back and forth is very contentious on both sides, especially on the against side. The board voted. They voted initially 3-3 with Greg Jans waiting to see how the boards was, and then Greg voted against the project. So it failed on the vote by a vote of 4-3. So that's where we're at today. Now, our ordinance states that even with preliminary plats in general, even though it fails on the planning commission side, I do need to take it to the board for the final approval or denial of this plat. It's kind of unusual. I think the other items are in the plats are very specific in our ordinance saying it has to go to the commissioners for approval or denial. That's why I'm here today.
Okay. And then at this time, if it's all right with the board, I'd like to, this is a time where the public can have their comment, if that's all right with you, Greg. And if you'd come forward, state your name, where you're from, and try to be within 3 minutes if possible. And remember, this is just a public comment period. This isn't a public hearing. So this is just your chance to do your piece. And then once you're done, the board will discuss this. We'll ask questions of Greg and make a ruling. So as I talked to, I think it's Leanna, I said I'd recognize you first. So if you want to come forward, state your name, where you're from, and give a little comment.
All right, so my name is Leanna Lesperance. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to discuss on our denied plat. We hope this statement just gives you a better understanding of the situation. First of all, I was born and raised in the Dasco-Cato area. Only a couple miles from this piece of property, I have a big family of 10 siblings. We all very much value the area. We go to church there. I still have multiple siblings in the school district, play sports. My parents work within the school district, and DC feels like home to us. Obviously, we have one big piece missing on our end. We don't own a home there. So that is why we're proposing for these 3 plats. We came up with the 3 acres, or the 3 plats, 3 to 5 acres each. Due to the cost of land, it was very expensive. Getting 3 lots in there would allow us to put in a private road and not have to provide funds for a county road. It would be able to allow us to sell 2 buildable lots to bring down the overall cost of land. And it was important to us to continue the trend of what that area already has to maintain property values. There's 10 homes and lots to the south covering 45-ish acres and 3 homes to the west, each over 10 acres. Like Greg mentioned, we went to the meetings and there was a little bit of back and forth. Obviously, we went to the first preliminary to see if the project was worth pursuing, and we did get, that acceptance from the board members to keep going forth with it. What we put into the land now with land surveys, wet delineations, perk test, we're looking at over $10,000 invested into that already. So obviously we were a little disappointed with the denial when it comes to that terms. There were some comments that stuck out to us in the last meeting that were a little bit confusing and just concerning. I'll quote some of them here. One of the board members mentioned they went out there to look at it, and it really is the best next option for development in that area. There was another comment made that said, this isn't a matter of if land in this area gets developed, it's when. And another comment saying the east side of Meeker County is going to continue to develop as urban areas get pushed further out. I guess the last comment that stuck out to us the most, that was a little, I don't really know how to explain it, but it was a farmer there opposed to it and concerned about ag land being taken out of production. But when it came to the discussion of hunting land concerns and that being taken out, he went on to say that he preserved some sort of grassland on his property so he could always hunt, and that was over 100 acres taken out of production. As we are sitting there being denied our 12 acres. So that felt a little injustice at that time. After the denial, we've had countless people from the community express their concerns. Dassel Township increased tax rates, but not allowing more people in the area. Families frustrated that land never comes for sale in this area. A lot of people want to move back, but are stuck in, Delano, Buffalo, cities areas, because that's where rental properties are available. I've had several local farmers frustrated with the established farmers in the area not willing to sell them any land as they get up and running. So they were excited that we were potentially going to have this 18 acres to sell as ag land for those new farmers. Also, in our local newspaper, which I have prints out here of both issues in October 2024 in the DC newspaper, stating that there's housing issues in this area. The first one is titled, Cocato Working to Combat Housing Crisis, stating that there needs to be collaborations between state agencies, local governments, and community organizations to ensure that rural residents have access to safe, stable, and affordable housing. There's another article printed here about one of our local dentists who is running for school board, stating that they have noticed a slight decline in student enrollment over the past 5 to 7 years. Kindergarten classes are consistently smaller than graduating classes. Part of the enrollment decline, he states, is likely related to lack of housing availability for new families to move into the school district. We ourselves right now are a perfect example of this. We don't live there, we don't have our child enrolled in school there because there was no place for us to rent when we came to town, and we haven't been granted the access to build a home yet. So I guess all in all, it's become very apparent that our community is in need of affordable rural housing. What we are proposing is positive to this community. We simply just want to live here, work here, be part of the community, give back. We aren't land developers, we're just a normal middle class working young family. We aren't even going to pocket a dime from this. We are simply just looking for reconsideration so we can affordably build our home. We value the close-knit close-knit community DCOppers. We value agricultural heritage. We value family. We just want to build a home, and we're asking for 3 plats to maintain the affordability and to help other families in a similar situation to us. Approval today would be a huge blessing for our family. We really hope that we hope that you can realize that we do care for ag land as we do preserve 18 acres of it. We care to help other local families as selling to affordable lots. So we care to build our own family home and be a part of a community that was so good to me and my family. So, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Leanna. The only problem I had is you're one of 10 and I'm one of 9 and I don't like losing. I'll try not to keep that personal belief against it. So, but anybody else who would like to, okay, if you want to state your name and where you're from.
Good morning. My name is Daryl Schwartz. I am a resident directly south of this piece of property. And I am speaking on behalf of myself and my wife Jennifer. I appreciate the opportunity to speak this morning. We're here really to respectfully request that you uphold the decision made by your Planning and Zoning Board to deny the rezoning request for the parcel of land at 74990 240th Street in Dassel, which the Planning Board voted 4-3 against allowing the rezoning. In our previous letters to the Planning and Zoning Board, we expressed concerns shared by many residents about the potential impact of this rezoning. First, we want to protect productive agricultural land. This land is currently viable for farming, contributing to our local economy and food supply. If we allow this parcel to be converted to rural residential use, it sets a precedent for speculative purchasing that drives up land prices, making it harder for farmers to afford or maintain agricultural land. We risk creating a situation where agricultural land is priced out of the reaches to the true stewards of the land. Rezoning becomes an expectation for new owners of the property. Second, the intent of the new owners raises concerns. Unlike cases where rezoning applied to land held by the same family for years and with marginal agricultural value, this land was purchased with the apparent goal of conversion. When buyers acquire agricultural land with the expectation of residential rezoning, it undermines our zoning standards and it threatens the stability of the agricultural base. Allowing this rezone would send a message that rezoning or that agricultural zoning is temporary rather than protection we stand by. Finally, we need sustainable growth that aligns with rural character. Converting quality agricultural land to residential use places additional strain on our county resources, from infrastructure like roads and water systems to environmental considerations such as wildlife habitat. Sustainable growth means protecting our agricultural areas and finding ways to encourage residential expansion within established zones, preserving our rural way of life and ensuring a balance that benefits all residents. We understand that these decisions like these are complex, and we have a great respect for the work that you do in balancing growth with preservation. Now that this request is before you, we ask that you support the majority vote of the Planning and Zoning Board by voting no to rezoning this request. By doing so, you will protect our agricultural resources, strengthen our community's commitment to responsible land use, and support the vision of a county that values its rural heritage. Thank you for your consideration.
All right. Thank you, Daryl. Is there anybody else? Okay.
My name is Amanda Allen, and I live directly west of this property. So I'm here to also respectfully ask you to decline this proposal. So I am not from Desel-Cokato, but now that we live here, we love living here, and we have decided to start our family here because it's a great community, and we love where we live. And we bought our property with the ability to hunt it. And where they are putting these proposed lots, that would not allow us to do that anymore. And I have grown up in agriculture. I've grown up hunting my whole life, and agriculture is just so important for the community and just to feed families, and it's sad to see agriculture land turn to residential. And, land we're not making any more of it, so it's hard to keep land, for farmers. Farmers need it, their ability to make a living as well. So just our ability to hunt our property is the reason why we bought it in the first place, and these proposed lots would end that for us. So we respectfully ask you to vote down this proposal. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Amanda. I'm glad someone out there knows how to shoot. I know I don't, so. Help with the curving of the large rats that run around. At this time, if the board would like to ask any questions of Greg on this, and then we'll go into a vote.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, Steve.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Greg, was there a couple things I didn't see in here? So this is a 30-acre parcel, 30.5. Was there a building entitlement on it so that it was bought with zero entitlement to build on? Okay. Now, I'm assuming that through this, that planning and zoning looks at all that. Is there other options? This is a 3-lot plan, I'm assuming, in this denial. There's also options, though. You're also given options. What the property owner is given other options or considerations that, just because we denied this, you do have other options.
Yes.
And them have been
Yep.
explained?
If our ordinance states it, because it denied, and if you deny this one today, if they want to come back with the same exact plat, they have to wait a year. If they want to come back with another altered plat, or if they want to do a conservation subdivision, which is pulling out 6 acres out of this and doing a one acre plat with a 5-acre conservation subdivision attached to it, pull out 6 acres, they could do that. You don't have to wait for a year, they can do that next month or the next month, they could do that. So there are a couple options on the table if this gets denied, for them to do, so it's not necessarily dead in the water.
Sure. And I was taking that for granted that because you denied this plan, there's else,
Yes, there's all.
we'll also give you alternatives or, one other point I would make when I first became a commissioner, a neighbor just down the road from me had 40 acres and wanted to build a shed, and Greg might remember this as I explain it. Well, he went and, his existing shed that where he wanted to build next to was only 60 feet from the center line. When he had trees between that shed and the road, he went and cut all his trees down for this new shed, then he went to get a permit. And you can't build that close to the road. And he had 40 acres, so there was other places he could build his shed, and I know he asked Greg, well, I'll get a variance, and Greg told him, well, I don't wanna disappoint you, but it's $400 for a variance, and I'm pretty sure they're not gonna grant it to you because you have other places on the property for a shed. And he wasn't happy with that answer, but, you know, so instead of researching to get the permit first and to do the things he needed to do, he got the cart ahead of the horse a little bit, and then was unhappy because he couldn't follow through. So, and that kind of feels like this is a similar situation, but you do have options, and them options have been explained to you, so that's, I mean, we always have other options.
There are options out there. In this case, even before they purchased the property, they did contact me and talked about options. And I looked at this, and I looked at the 63 acres that are rezoned R2 since basically 1999, 2001 and 2019, and said, you know, this has probably got a decent chance of going through. You know, I never give 100% to anybody. But it says, because you got 63 acres contiguous to this property, it makes sense that probably the next development's gonna be in this, across the road in this chunk of land.
So they did come to you first before they went ahead on like cutting
And
trees
that's why
down?
we have the preliminary
Right.
meetings with these people before they even start investing and do the soils
Right.
and do their title work and they do their.
Which
wetland
makes it very
delineation.
different from somebody cutting all their trees down and then coming to them.
Yeah, they
No, but-
did it
No,
correctly.
They did it correctly.
But you still don't have building entitlement,
No, but
and that takes
From
board
what
approval.
I understand-
That takes board approval,
I
not this board.
understand that, but I don't think the two situations are the same, is all I'm saying.
But
Because they did come.
question now, what is Meeker County's comprehensive plan in terms of zoning ag land? Is it not one entitlement per 40 acres?
It's one per 40, per quarter section or government law.
Yep.
So it's not 40 acres, quarter section or government law.
Okay.
Get mixed up, about 40 acre piece.
And this particular land was a CPI of 84,
Yes,
which is actually pretty good cropland,
pretty good.
because a lot of sheepville land is in that area, and I'd hate to say we're farming crap, so to speak. So it is true agriculture land, and when you look at our comprehensive plan, I think the planning and zoning got it right.
Mr. Chair,
Yep, Paul.
I struggle with something here because it has been a long-standing practice that anyone wanting to rezone or replat comes before the planning and zoning and says, is this something that will, before they spend a dime? In this particular case, they came before the planning and zoning group, the 7 members, and said, is this something that you think will go? And they were told yes. And then, based on that answer, turned around and spent $10,000 to get to this point. I struggle with that.
Question then, did they come to you, or did they come to the planning and zoning?
Planning and zoning board.
Planning and zoning board.
And they
It
were,
has been a long-standing practice from when I was on planning and zoning. You bring it in, you show it, and we either express an interest and say, yeah, it fits or doesn't fit, or you need to consider this, prior to them moving forward. It was the same thing. I rezoned, as you well know, a couple of years ago, and I had to come before them to ask if this was something they were going to allow. And, you know, would I have moved forward and spent $10,000? They said no. No, I
Of
would
course
not.
not.
That is my problem, one of my problems with this issue is because we rely on our planning and zoning to give even that initial
council,
go ahead,
they were council.
and then we back off on what we said.
Yep.
I mean, our word has got to be worth something. And we're still preserving 18 acres of the agricultural land. Behind it is a development. How many is back there? 10.
So,
I struggle with that because these folks have done everything right and we're now to this point. The other issue I struggle with is I don't like voting to overturn what the Planning and Zoning Commission has voted to do. I don't like that part. But right is right.
Question on the timeline then, is the first time they approached the planning and zoning, I was told it was June. But when was it purchased? May? So then that timeline is not working out. Did they,
no, it's working out because they contacted me when we purchased it.
right, but they contact the planning and zone committee,
Correct.
is what I'm asking. They contacted you and you said it could be done, but there's no guarantee, which is a logical reasoning, with accordance of what's happened before. And I did review the land, and you guys did rezone something, I believe, 5 years ago, which is more of a pasture setting rather than a crop setting, because I looked at it. In my opinion too, I think pasture is agriculture, but I come from a unique situation. And I probably wouldn't have proved that, but that's what the planning and zoning did. And in this case, so that's where I'm having a problem with the timeline, is that if they asked planning and zoning, or they asked you prior to them purchasing, because if it wasn't the planning and zoning, then the committee itself is looking at it just for the first time in June after it was purchased. And if we're gonna have a comprehensive plan in Meeker County, I think it really needs to be looked at in a serious way, because the point of the comprehensive plan is to protect agriculture land, and especially a higher CPI like 84. And if we're gonna start rezoning that, what it does is everybody who's purchased land prior to that, or, it's either created more wealth, or what it does is it makes it very hard for other farmers to buy these kind of parcels. Because once it's deemed to the point where it can be rezoned, then that's gonna be the highest bidder, potentially will be that type of situation. And I am concerned that if we don't follow our comprehensive plan, it puts farmers at a big negative, and that's what we're trying to do in Meeker County. Otherwise, what's the point of the comprehensive plan? So those are my two pieces. So I'd really like to clarify the timeline in terms of if they came to the planning and zoning committee in June and purchased it in May, then it's a little different than what Paul's understanding. And I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but I'm kind of confused at this point because I thought that's the way I read it.
I don't recall, well, I spent 3 years on planning and
Yep.
zoning, but I don't recall anyone coming to the planning and zoning saying, we're considering buying this land and we want to know. Generally, we had people who were in ownership already.
Right, yep.
And
I'm
so,
trying to think of, I don't think I have an example of anybody coming with a hypothetical. We usually don't look at things in planning and zoning unless you're the owner.
Yeah.
I don't know, I don't think they would have done it.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yep, Beth.
so I'm curious, I've been commissioner a while.
Sorry, I was just trying to get
How
clarification.
many of these have we turned down
Yep.
previous? I don't recall ever turning any of these down.
Finding that have been turned down.
And when you say they can come back after a year, what would their belief be that anything's gonna change in a year?
I'll come back with the
Just in
same
our ord-
plan.
That's what our ordinance. says.
That's,
We'll
I
have to wait a
understand,
year.
Steve.
Okay,
And
I'm not-
also, if they come back with a conservation plan, is that gonna pass? Or do they spend more time,
More time.
My
money.
conversation was that after they talked to you, you didn't guarantee it, but they certainly thought that, and even after the first meeting, it sounded pretty good, and something changed after that. So that's what concerns me. This young couple, and there is housing issues, by the way, in this county. We know that, we all know that. We're spending a lot of money right now to try to solve some of those. And there's always a question about people move into the country. Ever since I've been here, they'll get upset if their cows smell next door, and I'm like, they were there first, but you built there. So I understand all that. I just don't know why this sticks out more than all the other ones we've done over the years. That's the part I can't wrap my brain around.
One thing is to answer that question, that usually when people understand there's no entitlement, and they don't bring it forward. And when anybody purchases land, that entitlement is worth some sort of wealth. And when you go to the point as a county in a planning and zoning and say, this had no entitlement, but now we're gonna rezone it, all you're doing is creating more wealth by taking your case to planning and zoning. And what's the point of having the comprehensive plan that says one entitlement per 40 if you're able to lobby and go to the planning and zoning and say, hey, change it for me because.
Well, we've been
But
doing it-
everybody else
well,
who's
we've been
bought
doing it
land,
for- My point is, we've been doing it forever, so I don't know why this young couple should be denied because some neighbors wanna, no offense, hunt or I get it, I get the whole thing, but, you know, this young couple wanted to move into our community. I feel like they did everything right and then spent thousands of dollars, and now we're telling them, wait a year and maybe come back, or get into the conservation plan, which is, what is that?
You pull out 6 acres.
Pull out 6 acres and then, and is that gonna solve it? They have no guarantee even if they do that, so. And like Paul, I never like to go against planning and zoning, but this is one case where I am not gonna be able to vote.
okay, Julie?
What kind of land do they expect people to purchase then to build a home when our small towns in Meeker County are surrounded by agriculture land? What other kind of land could they purchase other than agriculture land? And they're not requesting a project that would be a negative impact to any of their neighbors. I only see win-win with this project. There's nothing negative, nothing that they're going to put on the property that would be offensive to the neighborhood. It will increase the value of the neighborhood. They want to move their family there, build their personal home there. The one lady who did speak, she said, we didn't even grow up here, but we wanted to live here. We wanted to purchase land here. We wanted to build our home here. So I see no reason for that kind of opposition. I see them hiring carpenters, plumbers, electricians, enhancing the landscape of the area with 3 opportunities for people to build family homes. I just see win-win with all of
But
this.
what you're suggesting is a comprehensive plan in Meeker County is incorrect. But it's not, currently,
It
that's what's
provides
in,
for options for.
right now, it's in the books. That's the way it
exceptions.
is.
Was it in the books over the last 10 years when we made these?
It's
That's
been
my
in the-
question. Yeah, but
it's-
Danny, in
it's-
the interest of
let's-
fairness, I'm
Go ahead,
talking.
go ahead.
In the interest of fairness,
Mm-hmm.
I wanna know why this young couple can't do what so many couples have done in the past.
All
And
the
if
way
they're gonna
down.
make that's the new standard, then Greg should know that so he can tell these people, no, the new standard is, we're gonna follow the plan and no one is gonna be able, you know, then from this, if you
How many
understand what I'm
times has
saying.
it been when it was an actual,
Do we
a
know?
large, like 84 type CPI of land that's been rezoned? Since I'm on the board, and usually it's around a lake
You
or
may be
something like
right.
that.
You may be right.
Those are the rezones that I would be like, okay, that's an area where the planning and zoning's deemed, okay, that would be a good place to rezone.
Do
But
we
when
have
it
that
comes to
information?
agriculture land,
No, I don't have that information off.
okay,
All around
Most of the
our,
stuff that's been rezoned is though ag land.
all around our small communities, the Dassel area, that's all ag land. How is that town supposed to grow? How are people supposed to come to that community to live there, raise their family, send their children to school there, if they can't purchase a lot to build a home on?
towns would have to annex the land and then move on whatever the rules are.
Or build mass housing projects? People don't want to live in those
So-
if they have the means.
Let's move, if we could,
Sure.
just so people have equal time.
Okay.
And I'm done, as far as, I felt like I've defended my stance very good, well.
Danny, I agree
Yep.
with you about the comprehensive use plan, land use plan. However, within that plan, there's also the option to apply for what
Yes.
exactly they did. So yes, the plan is there, but the plan also gives you options to apply for a replat rezone. So
Yep,
And this family could be going to the Soil Conservation Office and putting the entire 30 acres of ag land into a CRP program, which takes only agriculture land out of production, and that would be their choice. And the zoning board would have nothing to say about it. It would be the tax-paying property owner's choice. And in this regard, they're offering opportunities for other people to move to the neighborhood. I only see win-win with
Steve.
this.
I want to back up then, because if we're and this is where I was going in the beginning, there's options though. So what I'm hearing is, so the planning commission would grant the building entitlement for one home or possibly two? I mean,
You still have to meet with the planning commission and
but that can be done next week.
they could tell you.
I mean, if we want to do this plan.
They have to do the same process as they've done, so meet in a preliminary meeting.
Yes,
We discuss options with the planning.
that's
They
all.
get the green light from what the planning
If
commission
you want to wait a year, it's for this identical plan.
for the identical.
But you have options to maybe do one home on the 30 or two homes, there's different plat. I mean, there's an option to, so you bought a piece of property with no building entitlement, and you still have options to get a building entitlement. And Julie, to your point about CRP, yes, but I'm assuming that the average person went buy a 30-acre parcel at, I don't even know what the purchase price was, but it's gonna be priced accordingly if it's affordable to put into CRP for 30 years, or for 15 years, 10 or 15 years, because that's only gonna pay X amount of revenue, which is gonna reflect on the purchase price, which comes back to,
But it's up to the property owner to
Ex-
rent
exa-
to whomever
exactly.
they want to, or
Everybody's got
use their land however they want to.
exactly. But when it comes to building and splitting, that's what I'm trying to break down. This plan has to wait a year, but other plans, any other building plans, you have options for one or two homes, as long as you take that 6 acres and set it aside and, a conservation reserve.
Every time these people want to make a change, or if they wait a year, will they have to pay another application fee? They've already spent $1,400 on fees that they will not be reimbursed because of this denial. And when they came with their initial request, they were counseled by the board to make the changes. They made all the changes and moved forward and came back to the board with exactly what they had been told to do, and then they were denied. I have a big problem with that.
Mr. Chair, let's get a motion on the floor.
Okay,
Move to approve a rezoning application number 16454 to change 12.26 acres of parcel number 07-0369010 from A1 Agricultural Preservation District to R2 Residential District.
okay, a motion has been made.
I will second that.
Second, one thing to put into this, that it has to be a supermajority to override the planning zoning.
Correct.
Meaning it has to be a 4-1 to approve, I believe, to approve
Yes.
the motion.
Yes.
So,
Does it need to be a roll call?
It does not need to be.
It does not need to be a roll call.
Can I ask, we're not done with discussion,
No.
are we?
No, you
no,
have a
we
motion.
just had a motion on, we're trying to move it
So
along.
here's my question then. Our comprehensive plan states that we can't take ag land out and make it residential. Is that what I'm understanding here?
Doesn't specifically say that.
Okay. So you can make an exception, which is what we've done, we don't know how many times.
Correct.
So if I go along with the planning and zoning, then I will never have one of these come in front of me again, I'm assuming, right? Because if we're gonna start here, where are we gonna end up? That's my question. And that's what concerns me. In the interest of fairness, this is very unfair to this young couple. I don't know how this happened. I was surprised when I read it. Why minds changed? People, went from approving it to, I don't understand that. And so, Danny, you're saying, if I understand, and I'm not a farmer, that this kind of land should never be made residential.
This is my point, and then I'm done in
Okay.
terms of that.
Fair.
And just to answer your
Sure.
question, it's like you're talking about fairness, and it's like, how is it fair when anybody else goes out there to purchase land, knowing that there's one entitlement, that puts the value on that land, and that's how you buy land typically,
Right.
based on entitlements, on CPIs, and et cetera, that stuff.
Right.
What are you telling everybody else who followed those particular guidelines about how fairness is?
I understand.
And that's where you're using one instance when there's thousands that happens every, you know.
Except we've done it in the past. That's my
Exactly,
problem
but
with the
usually the
whole thing.
rezoning occurs during a lake area or something where it's much more
I wish I
marginal
had the-
land.
I wish I had the information on how many times we've done it in a situation like this.
Didn't-
You don't have that information, Greg?
Didn't you tell me, Greg, that there has never been, at least in the years that you've been here, a denial of a situation like this?
But I'm
Never.
talking about land quality.
Okay,
And this
I just want to
quality.
make that clear.
I
So,
think the quality of land makes
I don't
a
know.
difference.
at this point, we have a motion to approve the rezoning of the land. So the motion to approve,
Right.
which it would be going against
I
the planning and zoning, right? I just want it for clarification.
I understand.
So, all those in favor to approve the rezoning, please state by saying aye.
Aye.
All those against, please state the same. Aye. Okay, with
Sorry.
that said,
Mr. Chair, for a matter of the record,
Yep.
could we do a roll call on that?
yeah, certainly,
Roll call.
certainly,
Commissioner Oberg,
Aye.
right.
Commissioner Bredesen,
Aye, in favor.
Commissioner Johnson,
Aye.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Nay.
Commissioner Schiefelbein.
Nay.
And just for the record, when we have this much discussion on a topic, there's something wrong
Yep.
somewhere. And I don't like moving forward with that. I mean, so it needs to, there's way too many questions on this topic, on this issue. We have way too much discussion at
I
this board to
agree.
move forward. So whichever way is right or wrong, I'm not sure, but it needs to go, planning and zoning needs to get it right.
Well, it just feels like we're making a line in the sand right here today. And maybe that line of sand should have been made after the fact. We approve this one and say, all right, now, this is our comprehensive plan. No more deviation from our comprehensive plan. But now we've drawn that line in the sand. And for that reason, I'm not,
It is all a little murky in terms of this. It's why it was a split decision on the planning and zoning. It's all difficult. It's why we all have high emotions on this too. And it's a very tricky situation. But usually, you know, I just look at before you move on things.
What I
I
was
guess the lesson
disappointed.
is hopefully you have it done first.
Can we table this for more information?
No, I think we already made a motion,
Well, no, we made a motion.
motion and we voted on it. So I think the tabling is
So we
done
don't
at
have
this
to
point.
vote on what the plan is here?
You would still have to vote on the plat,
Right, we still
correct?
have to
There's-
vote on.
there's a second
on
piece.
what- We voted on letting them build. I'm talking about the decision by planning
Okay.
and zoning. If we have more
You
questions.
wanna make a motion to
I'm
table
just
it?
asking if I can do
I don't
that,
know.
Mr.
I'd
Chair.
imagine that's,
There's no, my,
I don't know how that
point of
does.
procedure, point of procedure.
Okay,
We can have a motion to reconsider a previous motion after we do two additional items of business. We can go back and say, someone can make a motion for reconsideration. At that point in time, we could reconsider it and table it if we so chose. Am
I just
correct
would
on
like
that, Andrew? Robert's
that's more
rules,
complicated.
Someone who's on the prevailing side of the motion has the ability then to reconsider the motion.
prevailing side.
So it would have to
which-
be Danny or Steve.
Yes,
Yes.
so you would have the option of
So
bringing it
the,
back to
the
life.
issue that's in front of us is that we have to take action on the plat that's here. As far as the timeline, Greg, I know we have limited timeline from when the application is submitted. Are we up against that timeline? Do we have time to come back in 2 weeks to consider this issue? So we have only so much time per statute to consider.
So we
issues.
can't table it for more information.
I mean,
We don't have time for that? Okay.
Don't we have the ability to continue it? As
not a
long-
public hearing.
Right,
So you would continue a public hearing.
we could continue a discussion if the motion was still on the table.
But we still have limited time from the time of the application, is my understanding.
What is the timeline for? I don't understand. Why does there have to be a timeline with this?
So nobody lingers for 2 or 3 years while we sit.
You want to make a decision so all parties can move forward, at least with something. And if they want to move forward with 2 lots or 1 lot, they have that ability. Others, if you keep prolonging it, no one comes up with a conclusion in terms of, as far as a timeline.
And do the landowners have a appeal process that they could go through or no? I'm just curious.
They have the opportunity to rezone it again in a different way, correct?
And would they have to apply with a new application fee each time they do this?
Correct.
This is injustice.
Well, yes, they'd have to pay again. They could by reasserting this same application a year from now, they would be banking on the fact that there would be different members on the Planning and Zoning Commission.
That's
Or
also,
there could be different members sitting here.
100% agree with that.
That
Yep.
would be there.
So as Steve said, we need, this is not, I don't understand it either, so you're right. I mean, I understand what you're saying,
Yep.
but I don't know why now. I continue to say, why now? Why not we've established,
They're not
we're not
requesting.
gonna do this anymore after this or whatever, so I get it, but, yeah.
The final piece is that the board shall make written findings in each case and state the reasons for its decision. So I think that based on this discussion, we just need to memorialize some of the terms, and then there's an adoption of the findings that were in the RBA. Is that correct? Yeah. Okay.
Well, it would be memorialized in the minutes.
Correct. We just need to make sure the minutes reflect that thoroughly.
So they're all taped.
So, Mr. Chair, we would still need action on the plat.
Okay, looking for a motion on the plat.
I so move to approve a preliminary plat application 16345 for a 3-lot plat of the L'Esperance addition located in the southeast 1/4 of the southeast 1/4 of section 24, township 119, range 29, in Dassel Township.
Okay, yep. Motion
Two
made
separate
by
motions.
Bresson. That's a second.
Okay, so so you're moving to approve the plat?
Yep.
Okay.
To
I'll
approve
second
it.
that.
Second by Oberg. Any further discussion? And we'll do a roll call on this one also.
Yeah, but I gotta have a question.
Yes.
What does if this was approved, what impact does it have?
The second motion, is that what
Yeah,
you're
the
asking?
second motion, I mean, what
It
impact?
doesn't
did
matter.
the
That's why I'm
first?
That's
looking
why I
at
didn't know.
Andrew going,
But our ordinance states that you gotta make a ruling on the preliminary plat.
The issue is,
This is a
yeah, you could
technicality.
subdivide the property, but you can't necessarily use it in the way that the plat identifies because you don't have the proper zoning. So
Technically.
you're creating smaller lots that are still in the A1 district.
now I'm really lost. I am
By approving,
out there.
if you were to approve the plat, you are approving the subdivision of the property into smaller lots, but it still is within the A1 district because you did not rezone it. So that does not mean that the landowner then can go and build homes on these because it still is within the current zoning, which is why you do the rezone
Yeah.
before you do the plat. But as Greg
It says on a
mentioned,
motion we should have on the table.
nope, because we still have to take action on the plat,
Yeah.
regardless of what happened with the rezone.
I don't know, maybe it's just me.
Maybe should have been
No, you do the rezone
No,
first
it's-
because, yes.
You can't do one without the other.
It's confusing, but it's right, is the
Okay.
way it's written.
I just don't know how to vote.
But just because it's approved doesn't mean that the landowner has to go in and record it that way. 'Cause
It's also a preliminary plat.
Yeah.
It's not a final plat.
So we're
They would still
approving
have
the
to come
plat.
back and do a final plat.
So Julie's motion is approving the plat that the
Correct.
homeowner, that the owners want.
That's my understanding.
Okay, is that what you're doing?
I guess so.
All right.
So, let me understand one more thing. Let's say that the plat is approved, and they come back in a year from now and reapply with an approved plat. What's the impact?
They have to get rezoned.
Still the rezone, so they would only have to apply for the rezoning, because their preliminary is already approved.
They do too.
They have to wait.
It depends.
Yeah, a year from now, yep.
It depends on what the rezoning is.
Right.
Yeah.
How long can a preliminary plat sit without being,
A year.
Oh, goodness.
It is not the role of government to take away the rights of a property owner or to deny them the pursuit of happiness. And when a vote on the planning zoning board is that close, I feel it should always go in the favor of the tax-paying property owner. And for these folks to have been counseled by that committee and to complete every detail and then to come back and have it denied, I am
At this
so
point-
upset.
At this point, if, Corey, you could do a roll call on this one?
Commissioner Schmidt,
Nay.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Bredesen,
Yes.
Commissioner Olberg.
Yes.
Commissioner Schiefelbein.
Nay. With that said, since it's not a supermajority, the plat will be denied. Thanks, Greg. With all that clarity and confusion, let's move on to the next thing here.
Greg, will you counsel with the people and let them know what their options are, please?
there's a requirement in the ordinance that
I didn't know that, so
provide
I
them
wanted
with
to
the
check. Thank
written
you.
findings.
Their application fee should be refunded.
It was.
Doesn't work that way.
No,
I get it.
so sad. Yep,
I just thought they had
Government
too much
takes
money to
away.
be denied.
I agree.
And then from that point
we
forward,
already pay taxes for public.
and it was done
All right,
then.
thanks, Greg.
Christie was there too, when Greg did it.
Next up, Phil. Hopefully this isn't as
Well, this is
confusing.
Now
Bridges.
We're gonna bridge to happiness.
Bridge a gap between our differences. All right.
And you are too. so you
Good
think-
morning, Phil Schmaltz, Public Works Director. 2 items for consideration today. I would like to flip them around because they'll make a little more sense from a logic point of view if we look at 34 Bridge first, because that's kind of one that's ongoing. So consider approval of a engineering services agreement for construction engineering for South 34 Bridge over the North Fork of the Crow River. It's bridge number 7230. It's a 128-foot long timber bridge built in the 60s. It's been identified for replacement. It actually has some federal grant money attached to it to be built in 2025. Back in May, we hired WSN Engineering to do design work on it, because we don't have internal design services. We would need a licensed structural engineer, and I'm not that. And we don't do enough bridges to do them. At that time, we hired a consultant for design. We did not hire them for construction services because we were optimistically hoping we would fill a long-term vacancy. We actually had someone that was intending to come here, and they chose not to. We've had a vacancy in our tech spot for over 2 years. If we would be able to fill that, because we only have 2 field techs, right now we have 1, then we would have a trained internal person that could do this work, but we don't. So that's why I'm here looking for a construction services contract with Erickson Engineering. One thing to note, if you looked at the estimated fees that were in the bid package, is Erickson is actually second when it comes to low cost on price. But their price is based on 85 days versus the 60 days of the lowest cost option. And the actual bill we pay will be based on hourly services. So the number of days you estimate the project to take is directly related to like a daily cost. So that's why I'm recommending Erickson Engineering. Another downside to this project is, like I said, I was hoping to inspect this internally, so this engineering services amount is not in the budget. Our consultant services for 2025 is mostly grabbed up by materials testing. We're gonna be doing the design services on this bridge and then some work on 34 and 12 with the ice we're updating. And then something to note too with the money, like I said, we got a federal grant, there's $400,000 of federal money for bridge construction. And then I do have state bridge bonding in the amount of $450,000 set for this bridge to be built in 2025. If we were to delay and try and get staff and get trained, we would lose the federal funds for sure, and I'd say the bridge bond would be at risk.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I'll move to approve an engineering services agreement with Erickson Engineering of Eden Prairie, Minnesota for an estimated cost of $138,960 for the construction and engineering services related to the replacement of existing bridge number 7230.
Okay,
Okay, now I have a different dollar figure listed here.
I got 160.
I have
Right there.
161.
But
Bridge?
we're on the second one. That's the
South
first one.
34?
Joyce.
Yep.
Did I get
Thought
them
I-
mixed up here?
Should be
I've got them mixed
138.
up, I'm sorry. Yeah, $138,960.
Yeah,
Is
County
that-
Road 34, bridge on
That's the one.
34.
Okay.
I will second that motion, Mr. Chair.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Question, Phil, when you're setting, and this has nothing to do with approval or disapproval, but how far down do they have to go to have a solid base to work off
There's
of?
two
Depends on
two
the soil.
requests.
It's actually,
Yeah, this
they
is
call
the
it an
one for
equation, there's a
34.
systematic
Oh,
approach.
This is the one
when they
for
drive
2.
the pile.
So
how
this
much
is the
distance
one
you
he's
get. So
on.
each time that hammer strikes
This
the
one.
pile,
Oh, he's on that.
they'll measure how far it moves. When you get to a certain point where it's only moving a little bit, you've reached your bearing capacity. And they estimate that based on some pretty deep soil borings they do in advance in the design process. But the
Okay.
actual depth of the piles depends on the soils. Or if they haven't hit bedrock, but that's not common in this area.
Okay.
I'd say it's pretty typical. 40's pretty shallow, 80, 60, somewhere in there, I think is typically where they get their bearing capacity.
Can it vary from one side to the other? too?
Yep, it could vary, quite a bit. They'll do a test pile initially, and that kind of sets their target. But then each pile is driven until you hit that resistance metric.
Phil, I noticed a little late in the game here this fall, but we have a few bridges, both of these, that have different ratings on them now. Who lowers that rating?
That-
Us? Is that us, or?
We
do
put up the signs, but it's based on a structural consultant who will review
Okay.
the bridge. And I'll talk about that a little more for the next one. 34's been rated for a while. I don't think we've
Yeah.
changed that since I started.
Okay, that one's, but two,
2 is drastic, yes. We'll talk about that.
and just for the record, farmers don't read signs on roads that they travel daily.
I can second that motion.
Very smart.
We're not a high Q type.
I think you are,
But then I
Danny.
found out that it was changed when the road was done this
You're a
summer.
lawbreaker, that's what you are.
I piled like 10 loads of grain.
On the record and off the record, I am. So, we have a motion on there. Any further questions on this one for Phil?
Well, I suppose this is entirely up to the engineering folks, and they'll look at this, the width of the bridge for meeting traffic and especially with farming equipment. How are those determinations made? Is it
Yep.
this engineering group?
It's part of the design process. So 34, that's underway. We actually had a discussion about width a month or so ago.
Yeah.
And that's, we can decide what width we want it to be, but if we go too far above what the state standard is, then we end up footing more of the bill, is how it works. I think we ended up with a 36-foot wide bridge, which is gonna replace, I think it's under 30, I know that,
Okay.
today on 34.
Yeah.
So it will be getting wider, but we can't go as wide as we want without shouldering more cost.
Because with modern equipment, of course, we understand that. Thank you.
Yep. Any other questions in this one? All those in favor, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, next up.
Okay, second item to consider is the Casatu Bridge over the same North Fork of the Crow River. It's just downstream from the one we just discussed. Bridge number 47524. It's a little bit longer. It's a 160-foot long timber structure. It's 20-plus years newer. It's a 1986 build. One thing concerning about our timber structures is they kind of slowly deteriorate until all of a sudden you have a member or members that get to the point of rot, and then things change real quickly. In this bridge specifically, it wasn't on our radar as poor condition, but then we did have a consultant review the condition of the bridge as part of our Casatu paving in the area. We wanted the consultant, or the contractor, to verify the bridge could handle what the contractor was gonna put on that bridge. when they replaced the pavement on the bridge surface. As a result of that review, the bridge was in worse condition than we thought it was, mainly related to what they use for pile spacing. So the vertical members that go under each pier are spaced relatively wide, so that coupled with the condition of the timber right now, reduced the load rating on that bridge from 40 tons to 14 tons. That was a shock to us, shock to the contractor, basically everyone involved. And that led us, we didn't even replace the bridge deck because at a 14-ton rating, we don't want that bridge on our system long-term. Repair options were looked at, but part of the problem you have is when the limiting factor on this structure is the piling. To replace the piling, you would basically have to lift up the bridge, replace everything under it. The cost just doesn't make sense. And then you'd still have a timber bridge when you're done. So that's why we looked at the replacement option. And with the load rating of 14 tons, we do want to fast track it. Was not planned, was not anticipated, but I do think it serves our traveling public to get it replaced. Same concept here, except we are looking to hire design and construction services on this bridge. Again, design, we're always gonna hire out. Construction, we'd like to do internally, but we're at half staff with our construction folks. So we cannot, so that is why we're looking for approval to hire again Erickson Engineering to do both design and construction services on this bridge. Not budgeted, we don't have any funds in the budget for this. Another note, not just the engineering, but the construction amount of this project was not in the budget. The state is out of bridge bond funds, so we cannot apply for that at this time. So the whole estimated 1.5 million would come out of what we had planned for 2026 or 2027 construction. I haven't identified specific projects to pull, but unless we identify some other funding, that's what I'm gonna have to do. Or delay the project. That's one thing to think about too. Bridge bonds will be available at some point, but when, I don't think next year's supposed to be a bonding year, so I don't know when the state plans to fill that pot.
What would the safety be of, I mean,
It should be safe up to 14 tons.
but they don't read signs, I just heard. So it's
I
concerning.
do now.
Oh, you do now?
So you say there may be some projects that you could put on the back burner and push this one up to the front to accommodate the cost factor?
Well, I only have so much money in our state aid account. It's like a checking account. The state uses gas tax and various funds to put money into that account, and then we spend it as we see fit. So unless we were to use local dollars, or I can find some grant that I don't know about, I don't expect to. I don't have another way to pay for the project.
But you don't know what projects will be put on the back burner then?
No, I mean, I looked at our 5-year plan, and I didn't wanna grab one quite yet to decide we're gonna delay it. In 2020, if we were able to build this bridge in 2025, which is optimistic, given the timeline to design it and get everything going, we do have enough funds in the state aid account to cover 25. It's in 26 and 27 when our account will run out of funds.
Is it safe to say my assumption is you put it on here for a reason now, though?
The
This,
construction?
yeah,
Yeah, I wanna get it going. Of course, we could wait, like I said.
I know, but this is,
14 ton, it's not really usable to the ag community and anyone else that's trying to haul a load across that bridge.
okay. Any further,
A lot of milk trucks.
gotcha.
There is.
Any further question, or then we're looking for a motion on this one?
Mr. Chair, I move to approve an engineering service agreement with Erickson Engineering of Eden Prairie for an estimated, this is $138,000.
No.
Nope.
This is the
On the
one.
wrong, I
161.
was on the wrong one as soon as I started
Yeah.
reading that. Hold on, let me get back to the other page. Very confusing day. Move to approve, and I'm still, do you have the motion? Go
right.
ahead and make it.
Should I make?
Same thing here.
I so move to approve an engineering services agreement with Erickson Engineering of Eden Prairie, Minnesota for an estimated cost of $161,266 for design and construction engineering services related to the replacement of existing bridge number 47524.
I will second that motion.
All right, beautifully done, ladies.
Thank you.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on this one? All those in favor, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, thanks, Phil.
Hey, on your vacant spots, have you had any interest?
Well, operators were full right now. We had some interest for the technician position, but haven't found a candidate. Well, we had one this spring.
Yes, sir.
That was, he accepted our offer, and then,
You guys want a recess?
so yeah,
Or,
and this is
I
kind
guess
of
a
what it's
temporary
gonna,
recess
we've been
before
creative
we
with
do
our
this?
scheduling to make things work, but we can't just let bridge construction. We gotta find that.
All right. Thanks, Phil. Before we recess the county board, for public comment, if Senator Lang wants to come up here, we'll extend the public comment. We don't encourage speeding here since he didn't make it to the 8:30. We'll let him go now.
Well, you know, we need $1 million, what do we need, $1.5 million for the bridge?
No pressure at all, Senator Lang. Any other requests beforehand?
Well, I appreciate the latitude a little bit here, and I did, of course, go over to the old building and then got caught in the, got caught by your sheriff. Ended up chatting with him in the parking lot, and I was hoping for a little latitude on time frame, but again, it's good to be back in front of the council. Mr. Chair, members, and administrators and staff, it's good to see you all again, and you know, I was a little envious sitting, when I worked for Renville County, sitting through the very tangible items which you guys are dealing with, like land use. I really, really missed that. I have to admit, I'm a little envious, but again, you know, really just here to kind of go over if you wanted to do some sort of a legislative review, kind of a state of affairs, a state of the state on a mini level for sure. Of course, today is a busy day for all of us. We have been doing the, you know, much, you know, land use is very controversial, but, you know, politics is definitely not, right? Over the last couple of months, we have been, in the state of Minnesota, of course, the House is up this year. So we have a 4-seat majority in the Democrat side of the House right now. Being a Republican and being in Minnesota, I'm optimistic that we're going to pick up a few seats, and the odds are fairly good that we will, as a Republican House. In the Senate, we have a 1-seat majority right now. Actually, as of right now, we're tied 33-33 in the Senate. We have a special election. Senator Kelly Morrison has chosen to run for the U.S. Congress in District 45, which is Western Metro. You have Victoria, Deep Haven, some parts of Minnetonka. So we've been working hard in that district trying to flip that seat. And if that happens, then depending on what happens with the presidential election and who our governor is as of tomorrow, or in a week, or however long it takes, we're going to be, so Minnesota is really kind of in a very tipsy time frame really right now when it comes to politics. So we got to speak about the bonding bill, don't we? So the bonding bill has historically been a very, I have always called it a meat and potatoes bill. That is what I said. That's the way I like to vote for bonding bills, when it had roads, bridges, LRIP program. County State Highway has often been involved in that, or pick and choose your projects within that. Call it what you will. We don't like to use that term. I just like to call it a special project. So, but yeah, and as anybody that's, you know, within 100 miles of Litchfield knows, District 1 is top of the list, or First District, excuse me, is top of the list for that bonding bill project. So, yeah, it's not a bonding year, but I can tell you that in my 8 years of being in the legislature, we bond in non-bonding years quite often. So that will definitely be a priority when we hit the ground running in January. What that bill looks like, I hope it's a lot of meat and potatoes and a lot less gold-plated toilets, because that's what it has been in the last couple of years. If anybody's looked at those bonding bills, the swallow your pride and vote for a bonding bill when there's so much included in it that really is not something that I want to pay interest on as far as a representative of the district. So it's been kind of a challenge the last couple of bonding bills, and there's so much included in them that are not roads and bridges. They're not, well, they're not tangible. And we're paying interest on that. We're paying interest on that every year. Budget-wise, the state is in a kind of a precarious position right now. In the 23 legislative biennium, we went from about $51 billion budget to about a little over 70, 71, 72, depending on how it all shakes out. So structurally, we in the state of Minnesota spent ourselves into what is projected to be about a $3 billion deficit when we will know more when the November forecast comes out, but it'll be about a $3 billion deficit, give or take. So that's what the experts are telling us from the Department of Revenue. That's what some of our analysts are telling us. That is a tough spot to be in for the state. There's a lot of one-time spending that went on in this budget cycle. So we spent the surplus, spent it right down. Every last cent of it's gone. And some of that was ongoing spending, so we're obligated by a statute to continue to spend on those items. So one of the more newspaper-worthy sections was like the free lunch for schools. That's going to fall upon the districts after the 25 year. So we paid for it for a couple of years, and after that, the money's going to run out, so the districts will be responsible for that. So that'll be right at the top of the list next year in the budget cycle. There are a lot of items like that, and if you can imagine, the state's spreadsheet is quite long. It takes a long time to go through. So there's a lot of items that pop up like that that are one-time money that we had that's going to be ongoing spending. So. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's kind of where I'm at. I'd really like to take some questions and kind of, hopefully I can answer some of the stuff that's top on your mind as far as what Meeker County sees. Anything that I can help with, definitely, and definitely try to open a line of communications between myself and the board. This is still kind of a new district, a new part of the district for me. I've tried to spend more and more time in Meeker County. My district pretty much goes, and if anybody doesn't know, it goes from just west of Kimball down to Montevideo, goes all the way down southeast to Mississippi County. So it's all of Renville County, all of Canyon High, Chippewa, and then I have about a third of Meeker County, so including Litchfield. Just to the east of town here, actually, is where I get cut off. So.
So any questions for Senator Lane?
Well, I'll speak, or maybe Phil's got transportation. How do we get dollars out here for these county roads and bridge I mean, you heard our situations that we're facing, and Phil's been telling us for as long as I've been around, or close to it, that the dollars just LRIP and that are not gonna keep up our projects that we have out here to do. So that's a big one.
Yeah, so I sit on the Transportation Committee. The Transportation Committee has been one of the most bipartisan committees I sit on, honestly. The chair is Scott Dibble. He's from the metro area, but he totally understands what we're going through in rural Minnesota. The bill that the Transportation Committee had was one of the biggest in the last 20 years that we've had, actually last year. The bonding portion of, or I should say, the way that this, county, state, and highway money goes through that committee has been good, but the LRIP program in particular has been not good as far as funding levels. And honestly, I would love to see that. And if anybody's seen the bills I've offered, I've tried pushing that program again and again and again. To say that coming to the committee, whether it's a county engineer or county commissioner saying we really need help in these areas, or we're gonna end up raising taxes, it can be very substantial, it can be poignant, it could be, it really tends to, and I'd also say that some of our priorities in the state of Minnesota have been really, we spent $3 billion on a Southwest Light Rail that's not operational yet. It was a $900 million project to start with, and we've got $3 billion into it. And there's lots.
Do they have gold-plated seats in there?
The bathrooms.
No, I meant no.
That's one area where our public transit dollars, I think I did the comparison during one of the committee hearings last year when they talked about all the money spent on this. There's a rail project from the Metro to Duluth that's going to spend $800 million of both state and federal dollars. So we're spending large amounts of money for public transit, but if you were to take take half that money that we spent on light rail and put it towards roads and buses, we could buy 6,000 buses and add 2 lanes of road to the 494, 694 corridor. So we're really prioritizing that when I think we should be trying to maintain what we have. Minnesota has some of the most paved roads of anywhere in the Midwest. We have a lot to take care of. I think every county is well aware of the fact that bridges in particular, and I know he did mention that we have moved away from having, earmarked bridge accounts to having, and this happened all along when the 35 bridge fell. Because of the dollars wrapped up in that we have gone into a specific bridge fund that I would like to see, and I don't know this project in particular, but I'm assuming it's a culvert style.
No, these are bridges.
They'll both be 3-span
Okay.
bridges, most likely, beam or slab, concrete.
And if there are specific requests like that, if you have 4 or 5 bridges within the county, I would carry a bill specifically aimed towards those, and I've done that for counties in the past. Outside of the LRIP program, there's nothing saying we can't target each individual project or a group of projects saying, this is outside of the scope of Quarters of Commerce, it's outside of the scope of things like that, where the LRIP program is not, and that does tend to lend, credence to the fact that, hey, we're struggling. We don't have the money to pay for these. We've budgeted every dollar we have. This is something where we need to start throwing our priorities at that, so.
I would just, like at AMC 2 years ago, transportation's like, oh man, we got everything. We got the Grand Slam, but then when I and Phil's smiling over here, because then we don't see it back here. When we come home, then we talk to Phil and not really for us. It didn't help us much, so that's been the caveat, if you will, but that's good to know. Maybe we have some other bridges too. Maybe we try and get
Yeah, we've got some others that are getting close.
the other money.
For bridges, the bridge bonding program is good. The problem is typically $100 million goes into bridge bonding, and then, oh, by the way, we're taking $87 million towards this 394 bridge. So you got $13 million for everyone to fight over, so.
You gotta get better at fighting, Phil. That's
He's right, and right now, the one that has been an issue is the bridge between Superior and Duluth, that we are splitting with Wisconsin and partnering with the federal government, but it's $1 billion bridge. Well, the state of Minnesota, believe it or not, has a checkbook, and the checkbook can't buy $1 billion bridge without the state of Wisconsin and the federal government pitching in. So when we have projects like that, I think on average, the Minnesota transportation bill has been about $350 million. We did almost 700 in the 23 biennium. So we are spending in transportation, and we're doing so. I mean, there's in New London, we did the overpass in New London last year. Was that last year? I believe it was, or the spring of 24. Sorry, last session, and that's a $27 million overpass. So when we start putting money out, it all gets eaten up pretty quick. So it's an ongoing fight. And then again, we're still funding trains, and we're still funding a lot of bike lanes and things like that, where in greater Minnesota, that's a tough sell. That's a tough sell when we're spending that. And all we want is what's the price tag on yours?
$1.5 million.
So.
You can fix,
Yeah.
25 little bridges
Exactly.
for one overpass.
So.
Is there anything, actually, since we have someone on the transportation committee, is there anything, Phil, that you would suggest that Senator Lane could do better? I'm sure he's probably hitting all the avenues that you're hoping for. That's just,
I think the funding infrastructure for transportation is good, what we have in place, the LRIP program, the bridge bonding program, the way we distribute our state aid funds, everything's good, it's just not enough dollars. We built a lot of great transportation infrastructure in the 50s, 60s, 70s. bills are coming due, those things are needing to be replaced, and the cost is extremely high. So I think we've gotten by with the old infrastructure for a while, and we just have too many big bills coming due right now. We don't have the funds to support it. I'm not talking about Meeker County, I'm talking about the whole state.
Yeah, our spending, well, I would say that the power of the dollar within the state has definitely fallen off. Some of these projects have exponentially grown, especially when there's been a long-term plan in place and a county or a state agency of any kind has put in dollars to that or said that is on our 5-year project. All of a sudden, you're seeing 30, 40, sometimes even more % increase on those projects, where it could have been a part of an LRIP program, but all of a sudden, this $27 million overpass that, when it was originally, well, it was supposed to be federal dollars, and we are getting some federal dollars for it too, so that's nice. But Candioi County originally had said that that was supposed to be about an $8 million overpass, and now we're on 30, and by the time it's probably spent and bought, it probably will be, even though we allowed 27.3. We have a lot of cost overruns. State level too.
Any other questions for Senator Lane?
Just a comment, because I know you're not on this committee, Representative Gilman is, but earlier today, we voted as a board to, we're in the Southwest 18 Mental Health Consortium, which got a grant for $4 million next year, $4 million the following year. However, the way the grant is reimbursed to the Southwest 18, we run into cash shortages. And it would be much better if it was an appropriation versus the other. So it's just really the funding mechanism as to how it works that would be helpful, because we're okay, but some of those counties in that southwest area don't have any extra dollars to spend, and it's a hardship almost for them to contribute to the funds that we had to establish so that we could pay the people that were providers for us. So just some, then a second thing is when we come to visit you this year in February, you guys get a bigger room, man. That thing was packed.
Yeah, again, my office is your office, so I always say if you guys wanna camp out and use my office as a node, by all means, do so. Usually February is starting to give you a pretty busy time for us down there. The first couple months prior to the first deadline, we're kind of running around and trying to be organized. This year, like I said, I'm optimistic about an election. That election could have positive consequences on counties throughout rural Minnesota or greater Minnesota that you will see a little more dedication to things like LRIP and what it takes to get that, depending on who the governor is. It might be an uphill battle, and of course, the challenge always is how much leverage does the House have? How do we prioritize our priorities when it comes to things like LRIP, or it comes to things like mental health, where in the past, I think, we've been pretty successful about onesie, twosie projects. We got, the CABS Hospital in Wilmer, where the Department of Health did not think we were gonna be able to do that. We did that, and all of a sudden, the Department of Health is trying to build a facility that, it's a state asset, it truly is, but the need is in rural Minnesota. We don't wanna continue to, oh, go ahead, sorry.
But Representative Blank, I'm on the transportation infrastructure for AMC. And I sit in that room with several commissioners from all over the state of Minnesota, but then also none of the commissioners from Hennepin County, but their lobbyists are there.
Yep.
And so we wonder why the money goes where it does. Well, those counties have lobbyists, and they carry a big stick, and they're able to squeeze, and when we get squeezed, where does it squeezes out of us?
I would say that the 7-county metro, the 13-county metro, are very politically savvy.
Mm-hmm.
They have a lobbyist mentality that sometimes, if I can't be your lobbyist, then but you're correct where they do carry a big stick. They carry a lot of weight when it comes to those metro counties and the dollars that, not only that they have in revenue themselves, but the focus that the Transportation Committee, the Health and Human Services Committee puts on those counties versus greater Minnesota. And I think politically speaking, that's why you see such a great divide between rural and metro. And it's not always political, it's care for your constituents, and it's been, at least in the last couple of years, it's been very concerning, where we see less and less. That goes in E through 12, all education, it goes to mental health services, it goes to transportation, it for sure goes in county program aid. It is not fair. It is not equal. It is not, it's my uphill climb. It has been for quite some time. So it's not lost on me when you say that. And we in District 16 now, or what was District 17, have been in particular successful on a few things. But I think that needs to be, that net needs to be cast a little wider. You're not wrong. You're not wrong. So.
County program aid is one that keeps Andrew up at night, right?
It certainly, I mean, the county program aid is what, if we see county program aid go down, the only way to fill that is through levy increase.
Well-
And when it goes up, it cuts into what we need to increase in our levy. So that has the most direct tax benefit or property tax benefit to our citizens.
Well, and not only that, but you probably have projects that are waiting on whatever that increase may be. Counties throughout the state of Minnesota are, I hate to say it, but there is going to be significant increases in spending that you're going to be mandated to do in the next couple of bienniums that passed 2 years ago, whether it's paid family leave. There is going to be significant cost increases. I think Candy County was around $500,000 initially. I'm sure it's well above that now. Again, that is an uphill climb, so.
Well, I thought,
Yeah.
all
sorry,
that, I know, such positivity now. I'm ready to go outside and hang myself for a second. I'll wait till tomorrow before I do that, so just in case.
You told us that earlier, so you got your better hands.
Yeah, exactly. So, any other questions for Senator Lane?
Good luck.
Yeah,
Can you say that? Or is that against some sort of political violation?
I'm not up for election now, so I'm in what I call the off season.
I just meant good luck down there and so.
Oh,
Yeah.
I knew he wasn't on the ballot.
oh. But, thank you for making the journey.
I appreciate it. Anytime you want me around, go ahead and give me a call. I'm pretty easy to get hold of, and
All right.
we'll have a busy day today.
We definitely appreciate your services and what you do for Meeker County, so, thank you.
Thanks.
Before we recess for county, if we want to take a quick 5-minute break. A quick 5 minutes, still 5 minutes, I guess, so. We'll just call it 5 minutes.